to Life Edge, because life, well, just doesn't have to be that mediocre. Here we are today. Hey, Susan, how are you? This is our co-host, Dr. Susan Nash.
Hi, I'm in Houston at a conference that we just wrapped up. I'm missing the reception just to be here, and I need to take off my tag.
There is no sacrifice big enough for her.
So anyway, hey, off duty.
Off duty, having a good time. Hey, and your audio sounds great today.
Thank you.
This is great. Anyway, let's run our intro real quickly. And we are back. And joining us today is Dr. Andrew Kinkella. He is a professor at Moorpark College. He's also an archaeologist. And he's got quite an interesting story, and he's done actual real archaeological work, which is great. Andrew, nice of you to join us.
Hey, good to be here. Yeah.
And Andrew's in studio with us, by the way, Susan. So he's right about 4 or 5 feet from me.
Nice.
Right over.
Yeah, he doesn't live too far from here. So this is great. Well, Andrew, tell us a little bit about what made you become an archaeologist.
Sure. So, I think I can trace back to when I first started college. I actually wanted to be an actor when I began my college career. And as I took my acting classes, they were all right, but they weren't not as impactful as I wanted them to be. And while I took the acting stuff, I just happened to take an intro to archaeology class, and I really, really liked it. And more than the class, I liked the people that were in the archaeology world. They just seemed really interesting, and it was kind of like I found my tribe, if that makes sense. I felt comfortable, I felt like I could be myself, and I really liked the stories that the professors and the other students, like the older students, would tell about. So there I was, in the Amazon or something, and I'd just be like, man, I would love to do something like that, So I just kind of angled my college career to that. I always wanted to travel and travel with a purpose, not just be a tourist, but actually go somewhere with some sort of meaning. So I was able to ultimately hook up with an archaeologist at Santa Barbara. That's where I got my bachelor's. I was double major ultimately in archaeology and film. And she had this really great project in Belize. And she offered to me, she's like, so do you want to spend the spring semester in Belize, in Central America for 3 months? And I was just like, yes, I do. Where do I sign? And that first trip to Belize really was one of those life-changing moments where when I came back, I didn't know if I wanted to be an archaeologist 100%, but I knew that I definitely wanted more of that, more of this sort of kind of extreme traveling with a purpose, and this sort of exploratory thing, the feeling of being the first person in sort of the modern era, in very far off areas in the jungle. I liked that feeling of exploration.
It's like being Indiana Jones.
It does have it has its moments, and the amount of times that a huge ball has rolled behind me and I had to run away, it's just I can't count them.
And by the way, Susan, 2 of the people who work here with us, Harold, who you know, and Sarah, who you know, their brother and sister, they have both been students of Andrew's at school, at Moorpark College. And before you came on, I'll tell you the secret. They both said he's a great professor. Just made it so interesting, so fun. And, it's hard not to learn when you have a professor like that, because you get into the class, you get into everything they're doing. So the acting worked, and definitely the scientific background also adds to it. So that's, you're the kind of professor probably everybody wants, but few have.
Oh, that's very kind. And the check's in the mail.
No, thank you.
I think part of it is I do, the acting experience did serve me well. And actually on that side, I went on where I was on a comedy team for a couple of years, an improv comedy team called Comedy Sports in downtown Santa Barbara. And that experience made me very conscious of the show of being a college professor. I mean, sometimes as a college professor, you're on stage in an auditorium that's bigger than most, plays being shown downtown or something. So to be conscious of the show was something I enjoyed doing, something that I like to add to my repertoire. So I'm happy that it worked.
Well, I have a quick question. Okay, so when you talked about being energized and fascinated by your first experience in Belize, when I was 16, I had an interesting experience. I was reading Incidents of Travel in the Chiapas and Yucatan by John Lloyd Stevens, the guy who went and it was in the 19th century. He went in and he said, "What are these mounds? These little hillocks?" It turns out they were Mayan temples. Yep. Well, the same kind of magic seems to be happening now with the LIDAR, that they found all these new and potentially undiscovered or temples or basically buildings.
Absolutely. Cities.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, do you think that they'll find, like the explorers burned a lot of the codices? Do you think that they'll find things like that when they dig around?
There's a lot there. So LIDAR is, of course, brand new technology that's coming into the jungle, and it enables us to see so well underneath the forest canopy. That was always the problem. You just couldn't tell what was under the trees. So now they're finding all these new structures, and you do still... I gotta say, I still do have a job. We still do need to go and actually ground truth it, because sometimes it is only a actual hill or something. It's not like a real pyramid, but most of the time it is. So the new technology of finding these new sites is really, really great. It's still very expensive, but in the years to come, I'm sure there'll be a lot more of that. In terms of the codices, man, there are only 4. The Spanish burned, of course, thousands. And in terms of actually finding a new codex, really only one has been found in the last several centuries. Really, there was one that was basically illegally looted in the late 1960s that was probably found in a dry cave. The other 3 were found in European libraries, because the conquistadors took those back to Spain.
Oh, wow.
So if you want to find a codex, the best place to look is a very old library in Europe, because it probably would have been protected. The chances of finding a codex in a dry cave in Mesoamerica are exceedingly small. I don't want to ruin your day, and say,
it is
never.
ruining my day.
I know, I'm sorry. Interview over. But I'd be surprised if it actually happened. It could, but I think pound for pound, you're way better off looking in those the ancient libraries in Europe, where the conquistadors maybe left an extra 2 that nobody knows. What's in the Vatican? That area. Maybe there's something back. That would be my focus if I was looking for something like that.
I guess then what you'd really come up with it maybe be more stelae that hadn't been chipped away or things like that.
Sure. The made out of stone, a lot of times they've fallen down, so they're kind of covered with trees and stuff. And Maya Stela, absolutely. So they find, I would say every year almost, you find like maybe one new one in the entire Maya world. So that'll keep happening.
Wow. Well, the other thing, too, I had the chance to visit some petroglyphs in Mexico near Alta Vista. And so we went down this dry creek bed and came across these, and then they had these great stories that went along with these rock carvings. And then they had this flat stone, and they said, "Hey, this is where they decapitated the victims." And I was wondering, are they just making this up, or are they coming? Are there really evidences of human sacrifice?
Okay. The answer is yes to all of the above, which is on your average day. Sometimes, depending on who's doing the tour or whatever, they'll tend to kind of push the sort of romanticized, swashbuckling side of things. So I don't know if in that instance there actually was human sacrifice. They might have just been going for it, but there was human sacrifice in the Mesoamerican world, definitely in the Maya world, in the Aztec world. You have overwhelming evidence for that, and a lot of it happened in the cenotes, which is one of my research specialties, the pools of water in the jungle. So the idea of taking a bound captive and slitting him through the chest and letting him bleed and throwing him into this pool of water, like kind of a mini lake of water in the Maya world. I mean, that did happen. We find all of it.
I guess, but technically that's a collapsed Dolene, speaking as a geologist.
Yeah, that's right. I'm like, somebody said collapsed Dolene. Yes. It's a limestone rock underneath. So basically, they collapse straight down. The walls are sheer underneath. The depth of the water varies a ton. It just depends on the water table. I've been in cenotes that are only 6 feet deep. I've been in cenotes that are 240 feet deep.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a big variety.
And they're mixed salt and fresh water sometimes too, right?
Yeah, if you're really near the coast, the ones that we work on are pretty far inland, so they're fresh water. Absolutely.
So were the other ones more on like the Cancun side of things?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. If you've been in that area, it's just as you get close to the beach area is called the Maya Riviera.
Okay.
If you've been to Tulum or any of those places, and those cenotes right nearby, they might have a little saltwater mix.
Interesting. So what happened to the Maya?
Do we know yet, or is it still theory?
They got on the wrong bus. They'll be back soon. There's a couple things there. Yeah. In terms of what happened to the Maya, they're still there. That's sort of step one.
Yeah.
You don't find like mass graves or any of that kind of stuff. There's still 8 million modern Maya individuals who still live in Mesoamerica. They just don't build pyramids anymore. They don't write hieroglyphics anymore. But so they as a culture are still there. In terms of what happened during the Maya collapse, it's a combination of things. Between around 800 and 900 AD, there's a series of droughts. There's a series of too much warfare. There's poor rulership. There's environmental degradation from planting too much corn, and it all kind of comes together at the same moment, and it all kind of falls apart. Now everybody doesn't die, but you just don't have like kings and queens anymore.
Okay, interesting.
The high-end Maya society is
But it almost seems like all of those societies, the Mayas, the Aztecs, the Incas, all suffered almost similar something. It's like we're big, we're strong, we're gone.
Absolutely. And the Maya are shouting at us from 900 AD, don't do what we did. When you see that list, my students, when I tell them, they always notice, they're like, wow, that reminds me of.
When you said that, I was going, gee, that sounds an awful lot like what we're going through now.
Absolutely does.
But
Or Easter Island, when they finally ate each other.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, Easter Island is sort of a specific instance because they're on an island in the middle of nowhere, and they have no.
They got hungry.
But that's a long backstory. There's a combination of I'm sure they ruin their environment. There's no place for them to go because they're on an island, and then right as they're at their worst, then you have first contact by the Europeans. So it's this double whammy of sort of not managing their environment quite well enough, and then boom, 1722, I think. The first Europeans get there.
it's interesting. I've been watching that Vikings TV series, which is sort of, it's a little different. But they have human sacrifice, which I never realized the Vikings did human sacrifices.
What?
Yes, they keep showing it on the show. Every time something bad happens, they go, we need another Timmy, somebody to sacrifice. And then they sacrifice somebody to get Thor, or they like Thor a lot, but also to get Odin to bless them a little bit and give them better luck. And I go, I didn't know they did that. And supposedly the historian who wrote, he's a famous screenwriter, but he's also a historian. That was part of the culture. They did actually sacrifice people. I go, interesting. Never knew they did that.
I'm not sure about the Viking thing for myself personally.
Okay.
I don't know. There's a lot of part of the world, but sorry.
There was a lot of creative freedom in what they're writing. It's like, wait a minute, that's not what he did. He did the other thing. But it's interesting because when I saw it, they actually I thought that was not really part of that culture up there.
And then human sacrifice in general, it sounds so foreign and so far away. And you'll hear these stories about human sacrifice, and sometimes they're true and sometimes they're not. I think it's like for the Maya, the Vikings honestly I don't know, but for the Maya, I do know that you'll hear really wild things like oh, they played the ball game and they sacrificed the winning team.
Yep.
It's like, that didn't happen, you know?
You know what's funny? LA County Museum of Metropolitan Museum of Art over there, LACMA, they had that exhibit, and they were telling everybody. I went to that exhibit, and they were saying, yep, the winning team is the one who was killed. And they said the games lasted for days sometimes because nobody wanted to win. It's
it doesn't play reasonable to sort of my common sense, meaning that there has to be more there. I'm not here to say that the Maya didn't sacrifice people at the end of the ball game, but I'm guessing it's much more like one of the main groups of people they would sacrifice are captives from a war from another town. So it's not like you're sacrificing your own brother or something.
Yeah, that was a little odd because I was going, really, what a weird game.
I think my guess they would do something like they would play a game with the captives, knowing the captives are going to lose. It's a setup. You know, it's kind of like the Romans would do this kind of stuff too. And then after they lose horribly, you know, the town's like, yay, they lost, and then they sacrifice at the end.
Right.
So that makes more sense. That's more sort of human.
That makes sense. Yeah, they have the equivalent of the festival, and anyway. So I have a question. Sure. So I had a chance to see some of the pottery of the moches. This is kind of far away from the Mayas, but it's somewhat contemporaneous, but in South America. And they were amazing in terms of how beautiful the ceramics were. And then I went, and I was in the Archaeological Museum in Lima, and so I wandered around and they said, oh, the erotic pottery. I go, huh? So awkward. It was so embarrassing. So graphic.
Oh, yeah.
Wondering if the Mayas ever did that stuff.
Yeah, you know, but they all did. You know, sometimes we're sort of so Victorian in our views on sexuality or whatever that all ancient cultures, you know, that's part of the human experience. So, with the Moche stuff, I remember I had a professor in college whose specialty was Peru, and one day in class she just brought a brown paper bag, and she's like, after class, you guys need to look in the bag. And of course we did. And inside there's this total over-the-top erotic pot, you know. And we looked at it and we're like, oh my, what? You know. And she's like, yeah, you know, you find these kind of things. So it is.
The first thing you see in the museum is like this thing of the dogs copulating, and it gets just more and more explicit from that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's in the grand scheme of things, that's the norm. That's not the odd part. If you look at anywhere, if you look at Pompeii, you know, the frescoes in Pompeii, they're really explicit and they're really sexualized and all that kind of stuff. It's just part of the entire human experience.
It was pretty funny though. I was I'm glad I wasn't here with my son.
Yeah, but you know, I like that they show that kind of stuff because it makes the past seem more like normal. You know, like these aren't some faraway people who just pray to their gods all day and hope their corn grows. You know, they had real lives. They had good days, bad days. They had close friends, and they had times when they were angry at people, and they had times when they made up, and everything in between. So that kind of stuff, just you're like, oh, right, they're just like us.
Yeah. And they weren't eroticized. They were just like they're kind of cute, actually.
Right.
Yeah, and then, I thought of that, and I thought, it reminded me a little bit, too, of in Mexico, they have tumbas de tiro, and they'd make all these little miniatures, and they just put them down, and it's like, I don't know how they ended up in holes in the ground. But you would know, I won't know. But they seem like they're little miniature clay figurines of all kinds of things.
Right. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but there are. I know other examples of this kind of stuff. You mean just sort of like human figurines that you would find just buried, like at the foot of a pyramid or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Well, I went to one place called Guachimontones. It was like a round pyramid. It was kind of here in Jalisco, and they had this they said, well, near this we found these hollow places, and then inside, I guess maybe they were buried with people. I don't know if they were funerary things, but they were cute little small little kind of almost like doll-like figures. That they had animals and they had. people, and they have people doing different things. And
Yeah.
Okay, those are they're just figurines. A lot of times those will be in a little ritual cache, and sometimes they'll be burial, sometimes not. But it'll usually be something like they're right in the center front of the pyramid, or it'll have some maybe compass rose reasoning, like this one's exactly to the north and this one's exactly to the east. You know, when you find that kind of thing, so it'll have special meaning. Often it'll relate to the pyramids it's found in front of, or something like that. They're neat. They're another very human kind of thing. These little miniature figurines, animals, people, and that kind of stuff.
Now, in Belize, what you've been going for years, right?
Yeah, a long time. My first year was 93.
93.
Yeah.
Wow. You don't look that old.
Even on the inside. Yeah. But I did start very young. I remember that very first trip. It was like 2 weeks after my 21st birthday. So as the years went by, I started just as a student on the project, and then I went onward to like a field director position, where you're kind of working with the other students and telling them where to dig or where to work, and it just went on from there. And I was part of such a great project. Ultimately, I was working with this woman, Dr. Lisa Lucero, who she was just really giving to me. And those of you guys who've gone through the academic world, you know what I mean. It's so nice to have like an advisor or somebody working with you who's so open and giving. So as the years went on, part of the reason I went on with my degrees, getting a master's and a PhD, is because I was part of this really great project in Belize, and there was just so many possibilities. Like I was so lucky to be able to just like, oh, there's 25 cenotes in a row here in Belize, and it's in our area, and we have a permit for it, and then for my research, I can basically do what I want up there, as long as it's cleared by the Belizean government. That's really rare for a student to get that kind of choice, and so I stuck with it just because it was so great.
And I didn't realize when Harold was telling me about Belize having the Mayans, I didn't realize they had been in that area.
Right.
You know, if you look at the current population of Belize, it's probably kind of an offshoot of probably Haiti. There's a lot of I guess, people from the islands that went to Belize.
Belize is like this nexus of cultures. Like if you're on the coast, it has a very like Jamaican vibe to it.
Yeah.
And it's not what people expect. They expect sort of a more Mexican feeling, but it's not. So you have sort of a Jamaican deal on the coast, but then the further you get inland, the more sort of like sort of a Mexican feel, the more Spanish speaking, and then you have Maya village. Yeah, you have like Maya villages in Belize too. So it's a mix of all kinds of things. And then of course it used to be British Honduras, so you have like a British like sort of leftover aspect, like the Queen is still on their money.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's this really interesting place, and for people who travel there, the two big things to see are the reef, because it's the second largest barrier reef in the world. If you're in scuba diving,
is it really?
Oh yeah. It's really, really great. And then the interior that has the Maya ruins. So that's what people go for. Those two things.
Oh, I thought
that's super interesting. So, what do you plan to do next?
What am I going to do next?
Yes.
Is that what, I'm just sort of maintaining my ties to Belize. On a typical summer, I only go for maybe a week or something like that. Years ago, I used to go for 2 months or 3 months or 4 months was I think the longest I ever went. And I've done it for something like 17 summers. I forget how many. But I go shorter now. But my little projects tend to be a lot more focused. Like I'll do a couple days of diving in one of the pools, or we'll just cut a transect just over here, which is a cut through the jungle, kind of looking for new mine ruins. So I'm a much smaller scale project. I'm still part of the larger Lisa's larger project, but my personal spot is not as long lasting. And I like it like that. It's nice to be able to kind of touch base and say hi, continue there. And I'm continuing with the diving. Like I do diving in the cenotes, looking for artifacts and exploring the cenotes. That part's really
Now, is there any element of danger in all that? Not only from possible, brigands or whatever.
Yeah.
the local rabble, but also just snakes and other things that are pretty prevalent around there.
Of course, right? There's all kinds of, and the local people are very kind and giving and helpful to us on our project. We hire local people, and the local Belizeans are just the best because when they work in the jungle with these dangers that we're talking about, they're going to see the snake before you see the snake. So you want local people on your project. So there are all kinds of dangers. You do just have to kind of laugh it off.
Yeah.
Like when you hear a jaguar at night and you're sleeping in a hammock. You just gotta know that you're not their natural prey. And it's gonna be all right. It's a good story for later. But all kinds of funny stuff has happened over the years. Like I accidentally swam with a crocodile one time.
That's funny.
Oh, lovely.
Did he know you were there, or just kind of ignored you?
It's just he seemed to not ignore us. It was me and one other guy. We were sort of floating out there taking some measurements. And at first we thought it was a stick. But it was actually the crocodile's eyebrows, and they turned and went under the water straight towards us. And so we swam away at great speed. So there's just moments like that. Honestly, things like killer bees, you have to make sure to run when you see them, and it's stuff like stuff that's going to get you. You're not going to be eaten by a jaguar, but you might get sick. It's those kind of things. Or, you may be in a car accident or something. You want to make sure it's the simple things. Like you want to be sure to wear your seatbelt.
Exactly.
What ultimately, when something goes really, really bad, like if I hear of somebody have something horrible happen, it's always like that. It's always like, wow, they have a car accident. It's not they were eaten by a crocodile.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, we're about ready to wrap up. Susan, do you want to ask our famous question?
Okay, great. Well, the name of our program is Life Edge, and so we are interested in what in your life has given you an edge.
What's giving me an edge on doing this? I tell my students, if you're getting into archaeology, and I think this applies for everything, there's really two things you need to make it through something like this, and it's tenacity. The want to stick with it, right? The need to stick with it no matter how hard things get, and things can get horribly hard in the jungle. And then the other thing is, the other thing is sense of humor. So it's those two things. And, I can think back to a moment in the jungle where it was a really hot day. We had been walking on the trail for hours. I was so tired. And in the jungle, it's full of vines, like on the ground, and you are tripping constantly. I was so tired and so sick of it. And I remember tripping and falling, and I was so tired, I didn't even protect my face. I just hit it. I fell literally on my face. And in that moment, I remember looking at the ground, being like 2 inches from the ground, and taking a moment, and taking a breath, and standing back up. That's what you need to do to be successful in archaeology. Because the jungle does not care.
That's a good point.
That's really good.
And life doesn't either.
No.
So you're right.
You have to do it. And then the ability to laugh it off later. You can't perseverate down into your own misery. Because everyone has mosquito bites in the jungle. Everyone's hot.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to, move forward.
That's great. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming in today. That was a lot of fun.
I'm glad.
I'm sitting here going, I want to get back into archaeology, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Hey, I teach Intro to Archaeology. Yeah. I'm teaching it every semester. We got Saturday classes where we do local archaeology.
That's pretty cool. That's a lot of fun.
Wow.
And there's definitely something exciting, just like when you talk about geology and the things you find and all that. There's all sorts of good stuff out there, and it's fun. And you know what? When you were talking about archaeology, it's really getting that curiosity.
Right.
And, people aren't curious that much anymore. It's like, aren't you curious?
Yeah. No. It's funny. Like underneath it, though, there are somebody's buying National Geographic.
Yeah, that's true.
And so it is up to us, like in the archaeology community or the geology community, in these sciences, to bring it to the public because they do want it. My students, they do want this. They don't want to just sit on their phone. They really don't. It might seem like it. But they don't. They want those, those tough things to try and to conquer.
And it makes them stronger.
It does. does. It does. It's the best life lessons, these kinds of things.
Yeah, what did it say? Without adversity, no one grows?
Right. They absolutely need it. They want it.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Well, hey, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Sure. If anybody wants to get a hold of you or contact you, what's the best way to do that?
I think the best way is you can take a look at my blog, Kinkella's Archaeology at WordPress. You can always get in touch with me through Moorpark College, where I'm a college professor. And it's very easy to find my information online. You just Google my name, like Moorpark College. Those are probably the best ways. My email address Kinkella@v3ccsand.edu. So vcccd.edu. That's my college email, and I'm happy to take any questions or anything like that. Students who are curious about this kind of stuff, I can talk about this kind of stuff all day.
Sounds fun. All right, great. Well, again, a pleasure to have you on. Susan, any final words?
Well, thank you. This is a lot of fun, and I hope we can talk about more in the future.
Absolutely.
You'd have to come back on. I think we'd all have fun.
Sure, anytime. We're close by.
Well, Susan, again, thanks for taking time out of your day. I know you had a big event going on, so we really appreciate that.
All right.
And
thank you.
And we will see you next week on Life Edge. Have a good one, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.